the day Daniel Bennett was accused of stealing millions from his own company. Almost everyone believed he was guilty. His bank accounts were frozen. Reporters surrounded his office. Hundreds of workers feared losing their jobs. Even the people who had known him for years began to look at him with doubt. But as Daniel sat silently in court, waiting for a judge to take away everything he had built, the courtroom door opened. A young woman walked inside carrying a thick folder. She looked directly at Daniel and said, "Dad, I found the truth." 15 years earlier, Daniel had found her with nothing but torn clothes, an empty stomach, and a plastic bag containing everything she owned. At that time, Daniel was 36 years old and already struggling to hold his own family together. His wife, Rachel, had died after a long illness, leaving him alone with 2 children. His son, Ethan, was 11, and his daughter, Grace, was 7. Daniel worked from early morning until late at night. He owned a small delivery business called Bennett Transport. It was not an empire then. It was one second-hand truck, a rented warehouse, and a pile of unpaid bills. Every morning, Daniel woke before sunrise. He prepared breakfast, packed school lunches, checked Grace's hair, reminded Ethan to take his homework, and then rushed to the warehouse. At night, he cooked simple meals, washed clothes, checked schoolwork, and answered business calls at the kitchen table. He often fell asleep with unpaid invoices in front of him. Ethan had become quiet since his mother's death. Grace still asked questions Daniel did not know how to answer. "Can Mom see us from heaven?" she once asked. Daniel held her close and replied, "I hope she can." One cold evening in November, Daniel made his final delivery near the city bus terminal. As he carried a package toward a shop, he noticed a small girl sitting behind a bench. She looked about 8 years old. Her coat was too thin for the weather. Her hair was tangled and her shoes were wet. A plastic grocery bag rested beside her. Daniel walked past it first. He was tired. Ethan and Grace were waiting at home, and he still needed to buy groceries, but something made him stop. He turned around and asked, "Are you waiting for someone?" The girl looked up but did not answer. Daniel stepped closer, keeping his voice gentle. "Are your parents nearby?" The girl slowly shook her head. "What's your name?" "Ava." Her voice was barely louder than a whisper. Daniel noticed that she was holding half a piece of bread. She was not eating it. She was hiding it inside her coat. "When did you last have a proper meal?" he asked. Ava looked away. Daniel bought her soup, a sandwich, and warm milk from a nearby cafe. She ate slowly at first, then quickly, as if someone might take the food away. While she ate, Daniel called the police and child services. A social worker arrived almost an hour later. She explained that Ava's mother had died several weeks earlier. Ava had been moved between temporary homes, but after running away from an unsafe placement, she had disappeared from the system. Daniel felt a tightness in his chest. The social worker turned to Ava. "We'll find somewhere for you tonight." Ava's face filled with fear. "Will it be another new place?" she asked. The social worker hesitated. Daniel recognized that look. It was the same fear he had seen in his own children after Rachel died. The fear that nothing would ever feel safe again. He could have walked away. He had already done the responsible thing. He had fed Ava and called for help, but he could not leave. "Can she stay with us tonight?" Daniel asked. The social worker looked surprised. "Emergency foster placement requires checks and paperwork." "Then check whatever you need." Daniel called his sister to stay with Ethan and Grace while the authorities inspected his small home. By midnight, after several calls and an emergency approval, Ava was allowed to stay temporarily. When Daniel brought her inside, Ethan stood in the hallway with his arms crossed. "Who is she?" he asked. Daniel explained everything. Ethan frowned. "Dad, we barely have enough room." Grace looked at Ava's wet shoes and thin coat. "She can sleep in my room," Grace said. Ava stared at her. "You don't have to," she whispered. Grace took her hand. "I have 2 blankets." The first few weeks were difficult. Ava hid food under her pillow. She woke up screaming at night. She became frightened whenever Daniel raised his voice. Even if he was only calling Ethan from another room, she kept her plastic bag beside the bed because she believed she might be sent away at any moment. Ethan remained distant. One evening, he found Ava using his late mother's old colored pencils. "Those aren't yours," he shouted. Ava dropped them immediately. "I'm sorry." She ran into Grace's room and hid behind the bed. Daniel followed her. Ava covered her face and said, "I'll leave. Please don't call the police." Daniel knelt on the floor. "No one is sending you away because of colored pencils. I didn't mean to take them, I know." She looked at him carefully. "Are you angry?" "I'm tired," Daniel admitted. "And sometimes I make mistakes. But listen to me, Ava. In this house, mistakes do not make people disposable." Ava's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Later that night, Daniel spoke to Ethan. "Those pencils belonged to Mum," Ethan said. "She gave them to me. I understand. You're acting like Ava is part of our family." Daniel sat beside him. "She needs someone." "So do we," Ethan replied. The words hurt because they were true. Daniel placed an arm around his son. "You and Grace will always come first in my heart. But love is not a room that becomes full. Helping Ava does not mean I love you less." Ethan did not answer, but his anger slowly softened. Months passed, a temporary placement became a long-term foster arrangement. Daniel attended meetings, court hearings, parenting classes, and home inspections. He missed deliveries and lost customers because of appointments. Money became even tighter one night. His landlord warned him that the warehouse rent was overdue. "If you don't pay by Friday, I'll change the locks," the landlord said. Daniel sold his late wife's old car to cover the payment. He traveled to work by bus for several months and told the children it was better for the environment. Ethan knew the truth. "You sold Mom's car because of us," he said. Daniel smiled sadly. "I sold a car to protect our home and the business. Things can be replaced. People can't." A year after, Daniel found Ava at the bus terminal. The court approved the adoption. Ava wore a simple blue dress borrowed from Daniel's sister. She stood nervously in front of the judge. The judge smiled. "Ava, do you understand that Daniel Bennett will legally become your father?" Ava nodded. Double quotes, "and Ethan and Grace will become your brother and sister." She looked at them. Grace was smiling. Ethan gave her a small nod. Ava turned back to the judge. "Does this mean I don't have to pack my bag anymore?" The room became silent. Daniel covered his mouth, trying to control his emotions. The judge answered gently, "Yes, it means you are home." Ava ran into Daniel's arms for the first time. She called him Dad. Daniel had no idea that 15 years later, the frightened little girl he had chosen to protect would stand between him and the destruction of everything he had built. Over the next 15 years, Bennett Transport grew far beyond Daniel's dreams. The second-hand truck became 5 trucks, then 20, then more than 100. The rented warehouse became a large logistics center. The company delivered medical supplies, food products, and industrial equipment across several states. Bennett Transport employed more than 400 people. Local newspapers called Daniel a self-made businessman. Some people even called his company an empire. Daniel never liked that word. He still remembered checking coins before buying milk. He remembered sleeping in the warehouse when he could not afford both rent and fuel. He remembered bringing his children to work on weekends because he could not pay for childcare. The business had not been built by one man. It had been built by a family. Ethan, now 26, managed warehouse operations. He was calm, practical, and respected by the staff. Grace, too, was completing her nursing degree. Ava, now 23, was finishing law school. She, who had chosen law because she remembered what it felt like to sit quietly while strangers decided where she would sleep. "I want to help people who don't know how to defend themselves," she once told Daniel. Daniel was proud of all 3 children, but he worried most about Ava. She worked too hard. She slept too little. She treated every achievement as if it were only temporary. One evening, Daniel found her studying at the kitchen table after midnight. "You have an exam tomorrow," he said. "You need sleep. I need to be ready." "You are ready." Ava shook her head. "People like me don't get many chances." Daniel sat across from her. "What do you mean, people like you?" She looked down. "People who came from nowhere." "You did not come from nowhere," he said. "You came from this family." Ava smiled, but part of her still feared that everything good in her life could disappear. That fear returned when trouble began inside the company. For nearly 20 years, Daniel had trusted his chief financial officer, Raymond Cole. Raymond had joined Bennett Transport when it was still a small operation. He had helped secure loans, negotiate contracts, and organize the company's accounts. Daniel treated him like a brother. Raymond attended family dinners. He remembered birthdays. He had even helped Ava prepare her first college applications. So when a group of investors accused Daniel of financial fraud, Daniel believed there had been a misunderstanding. The accusations were serious. Several $1 million had been transferred through false suppliers. Company records showed hidden debts and unauthorized loans. Electronic documents carried Daniel's signature. Investors claimed Daniel had taken money from the company and covered it with false reports. Daniel stared at the papers in disbelief. "Never approved these transfers." Raymond sat across from him, appearing deeply concerned. "Your electronic signature is on every document," Raymond said. "Then someone used it. Only you and I have access." Daniel looked at him. "Are you accusing me?" "No, I'm trying to understand what happened." Within days, the situation became public. Banks froze company accounts. Suppliers stopped deliveries. A civil lawsuit was filed. Reporters gathered outside the gates. One headline read, "Bennett Transport owner accused of $1 million fraud." Employees whispered in hallways. Some defended Daniel. Others worried that the man they trusted had been lying for years. A rival logistics corporation offered to buy the company at a very low price. Its representatives claimed the sale would protect employees and prevent bankruptcy. Daniel refused. "This company is not for sale." But the pressure increased. The bank threatened to seize company property. Payroll was due in 10 days. Lawyers warned Daniel that if the court placed Bennett Transport under emergency control, the rival corporation could take over the business. At home, the family began to fall apart under the stress. Grace cried after reading cruel comments online. "They're calling you a thief," she said. Daniel hugged her. "People speak quickly when they don't know the truth." Ethan wanted to confront the media. "We should release a statement," he said. "We should show them every record." "Our lawyers told us to stay quiet," Daniel replied. "And while we stay quiet, they destroy your name." Ava spent every free hour reading the legal documents. The evidence looked terrible. The false payments had been approved from Daniel's executive account. Board records showed his authorization. Several documents even contained details only senior management would know. One evening, Ava asked Raymond for access to old accounting systems. Raymond smiled politely. "Those files are already with the investigators. I want the internal backups. Were damaged during a server change years ago." Ava noticed he answered too quickly. That night she told Ethan, "I think Raymond is hiding something." Ethan stared at her. "Raymond has been with Dad since we were kids. That doesn't mean he is innocent. Do you have proof?" "Not yet." Daniel did not want to believe it. "Raymond stood by us when no one else did," he said. Ava answered carefully. "Sometimes the person closest to the door is the one who knows how to unlock it." The court hearing was scheduled for Monday morning. If Daniel lost, an outside controller would take control of Bennett Transport. The company could be sold within weeks. On Friday, the bank froze another major account. Daniel gathered the employees inside the warehouse. Hundreds of people stood between stacked boxes and silent delivery trucks. Daniel faced them with tired eyes. "I won't lie to you," he said. "The company is in danger. If the hearing goes badly, I may lose control of Bennett Transport." A woman near the front asked, "Will we still get paid?" Daniel swallowed. "I am doing everything I can." Another employee said, "Did you take the money?" The warehouse became completely silent. Daniel looked at the people who had worked beside him for years. "No," he said, "I did not." Some believed him, some did not. After the meeting, Daniel went to his office and closed the door. Ava found him sitting in the dark. A purchase agreement from the rival company rested on his desk. "If I sign this," Daniel said, "the employees may keep their jobs, and you lose everything. It's only a business." Ava looked around the office. Family photographs covered one wall. The first photograph showed Daniel standing beside his single old truck with Ethan, Grace, and Ava. "This is not only a business," she said. Daniel rubbed his eyes. "I'm tired." "Ava, I know. I fought after your mother died. I fought to raise you children. I fought to keep this company alive. But maybe I don't have another fight left." Ava sat beside him. 15 years ago, you were tired too." Daniel looked at her. "You had 2 children, no money, and a business that was almost failing. Still, you saw a homeless girl at a bus station and refused to leave her there. That was different." "No, Dad, it wasn't. You had every reason to walk away. But you stayed." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "What if I fight and still lose?" Ava placed her hand over the sale agreement. "Then we lose knowing we told the truth. But you cannot teach me that people are never disposable and then throw yourself away when things become hard." Daniel lowered his head. For the first time since the case began, he cried. Ava held him as he had once held her under a kitchen table after Daniel went home. Ava remained at the office with Ethan. They searched old computers, archived email accounts, and storage records. At nearly 3 in the morning, Ethan found an old backup drive from a system replaced 6 years earlier. The files showed something the investigators had missed. Daniel's electronic signature had been accessed through Raymond's private account. Ava checked the dates. One approval had been made while Daniel was in the hospital with Grace during an emergency operation. Another had been made while he was attending a business conference in another city. Then Ava found deleted emails between Raymond and executives from the rival corporation. One message read, "Once the court removes Bennett, we can purchase the company below market value. Full control should be possible within 30 days. Ava stared at the screen. Ethan whispered, "He planned everything." They printed the records, but one problem remained. The defense lawyer warned that old digital files might not be accepted without a witness who could prove the system was genuine. Then Ava remembered a name buried inside the archived reports. Teresa Chen, a former internal auditor. At 4 in the morning, Ava called her. The elderly woman answered after several rings. Ava apologized and explained the situation. Teresa became silent. Then she said, "I warned Raymond about those accounts 3 years ago. Do you still have proof?" "Yes." "Will you come to court?" Teresa hesitated. Ava closed her eyes. "Please. My father is about to lose everything." Teresa replied, "Your father once helped my husband when our insurance refused to cover his treatment. I kept every record because I knew one day someone might need the truth." The hearing was only a few hours away. Daniel entered the courtroom believing he might leave without his company. He did not know Ava was standing outside with evidence that could either save him or arrive too late. The courtroom was crowded. Employees filled the back rows. Reporters sat with notebooks ready. Bank representatives, suppliers, and investors waited to watch the fall of Daniel Bennett. Daniel sat beside his attorney across the aisle. Raymond avoided his eyes. The rival corporation's lawyer stood first. He spoke calmly and confidently. "Mr. Bennett approved false payments. concealed company debt, and transferred millions through fictional suppliers. His signatures appear throughout the records. Bennett Transport requires immediate outside control before more damage is done. The lawyer placed several documents before the judge. Daniel's attorney responded, "My client denies approving these transactions. We believe his electronic identity was misused." The judge looked over the papers. "Do you have evidence proving that?" Daniel's attorney paused. "Not enough at this time." Daniel felt the hope leave the room. The judge turned another page. "Based on the current evidence, the court is prepared to appoint an emergency controller." Daniel closed his eyes. He thought about the employees. He thought about his children. He thought about the old truck that had started everything. Then the courtroom door opened. Ava walked inside wearing a dark blue suit. Beside her was Daniel's senior defense attorney, who had been reviewing the new evidence. Ethan followed with a sealed computer drive. Teresa Chen walked slowly behind them. Daniel stood. "Ava," she looked at him. "I told you the truth deserved to be heard." The senior attorney addressed the judge. "Your Honor, we request permission to submit newly recovered digital records and call an additional witness. The evidence directly concerns the disputed approvals." The rival lawyer objected. "This is a delay tactic." The judge reviewed the first document. "Objection denied. I will hear the evidence." Ava was not yet a licensed attorney, so she sat beside the legal team and helped organize the records. A digital specialist explained that the archived server files were genuine. They showed that Daniel's electronic signature had been activated through Raymond Cole's secure login. The dates matched times when Daniel could not have proved the payments. One transfer had occurred while Daniel was inside a hospital waiting area with Grace. Another had occurred while he was speaking at a conference more than 500 miles away. The courtroom began to murmur. Then the emails were presented. The rival corporations' executives had discussed forcing Bennett Transport into financial crisis and purchasing it at a reduced price. Raymond's email account had answered, "Daniel trusts me. He will not see it until it is too late." Daniel looked across the room. Raymond's face had turned pale. Teresa Chen was called as a witness. She explained that she had worked as Bennett Transport's internal auditor. 3 years earlier, she discovered unusual payments and warned Raymond. "What did Mr. Cole tell you?" the attorney asked. "He told me the payments were confidential and approved by Daniel." "Did you speak to Daniel directly?" "No, Raymond removed my access before I could complete the review." "Why did you keep copies?" Teresa looked toward Daniel. "Because Daniel Bennett had always run the company honestly. I believed something was wrong." The attorney presented her emails, reports, and dated warnings. Finally, Raymond was called. He walked to the witness stand slowly. The attorney placed one of the printed emails in front of him. "Is this your email address?" Raymond looked at the judge. "Yes." "Did you write that Daniel trusted you and would not discover the plan until it was too late?" Raymond remained silent. The judge said, "Answer the question." "Yes." A wave of shock moved through the courtroom. "Did Daniel Bennett approve the false payments?" "No." "Did he know about your plan to force the company into a sale?" Raymond's voice became weak. "No." "Then who authorized the payments?" Raymond lowered his head. "I did." Daniel closed his eyes. The betrayal hurt almost as much as the fear of losing the company. Raymond had eaten at his table. He had watched his children grow. Daniel had trusted him like family. But the truth was finally clear. The judge denied the request to place Bennett Transport under outside control. She ordered the accounts to be released after review and referred Raymond and the involved investors for criminal investigation. The rival corporation withdrew its purchase offer before the end of the day. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around Daniel. Double quotes, "Mr. Bennett, do you have a statement? Will you sue the investors? How did your daughter discover the evidence?" Daniel did not answer. He looked through the crowd and found Ava for a moment. They simply stood facing each other. Then Daniel walked toward her and pulled her into his arms. "You saved everything," he whispered. Ava began to cry. "No, Dad, you saved me first." Daniel shook his head. "I only gave you a home. You gave me more than that. You taught me that being abandoned did not mean I was worthless. You taught me to fight for people when they could not fight for themselves." Ethan and Grace joined them for the first time in months. The family stood together without fear. The company did not recover overnight. Daniel still had to rebuild trust. Banks demanded new controls. Clients asked difficult questions. Employees needed reassurance. Daniel made an important decision. He refused to hide what had happened. He called a company-wide meeting and explained the truth. He apologized for trusting one person with too much authority. He created stronger financial systems and appointed an independent board. "I did not steal from this company," he told the employees, "but I failed to protect it properly. That responsibility belongs to me." His honesty helped the company recover. Most employees stayed. Several major clients returned. Within a year, Bennett Transport was stable again. Ethan, they became chief operating officer. Grace completed her nursing degree and began working at the same hospital where Daniel had once waited beside her during surgery. After passing the bar exam, Ava joined Bennett Transport as legal counsel, but she did not stop there. She opened a small legal support center for homeless children and young adults leaving foster care. The center helped them obtain identification papers, housing assistance, scholarships, and protection from unsafe placements. On opening day, Daniel stood beside Ava outside the building. A small sign above the door read, "The Home First FOU," and Daniel smiled. Why that name? Ava looked at him because before people can rebuild their lives, they need to know they belong somewhere. Inside the center, Daniel noticed a framed plastic grocery bag hanging on the wall. It was the same bag Ava had carried at the bus terminal 15 years earlier. "You kept it?" he asked. Ava nodded. "I kept it to remember the girl I was." Daniel touched the frame gently. "I wish I had found you sooner." Ava took his hand. "You found me when I needed you most." Years earlier, Daniel had believed he was saving one homeless child. In truth, he was planting something he could not yet see. His kindness became Ava's courage. His sacrifice became her strength. And when Daniel's own world began to collapse, the love he had given returned through a courtroom door carrying the truth.